this is a detailed article which attempts to consider the mathematics of a worldwide flood and tries to look at it dispassionately. It's, as I say, a detailed article, and it's trying to consider what type of mechanisms would have been involved to have created the sedimentary rocks that we see attributed to the flood, which are extensive and involve many kilometres of sedimentary rocks of various types, and they're often found on top of continents rather than in the sea. So it is an attempt by the creation science movement to consider these things from a mathematical and scientific point of view. And it shows the integrity of the people involved, that they want to consider these things seriously and to do so within the normal boundaries of scientific and mathematical endeavour. As I say, it just goes to support the idea that there is almost a parallel scientific community who peer review their own work and who are happy to consider the issues involved without being overly prejudiced one way or t'other, but look at the evidence for what it is. But they do so with the knowledge that because the Bible is true, one would expect the flood evidence to, as it were, be there. And because it may sound paradoxical, but if you approach evidence, you have got to come with a certain concept of what you think is right. So if you're an atheist, you're going to come with the view that there are no external spiritual inputs into the system, and you have what we call methodological naturalism. And that will affect how you look at the evidence. But if your atheism is correct, then you would expect the evidence to support your position. If the evidence is consistently not supporting your position, or is extremely difficult to shoehorn into your position, then you must possibly go back to your original starting premise that atheism was correct. And I would suggest that the evidence of complexity, the evidence of entropy, and the evidence of soft tissue in fossils, plus many other pieces of evidence, should give the atheists sufficient cause to doubt their original premise that there is no God. Likewise, those who believe there is a God would have to come to the evidence that they find, and if they're finding it is consistently inconsistent with their beliefs, then they would have to go back to their original premise. But it's perfectly legitimate to have an original premise and work from that. What you would expect to find if your premise is correct is that the evidence would back up your premise. You would expect potential anomalies and things that don't seem to make sense at the time. That's fair dues. That's not expecting 100% backing up, because we have such an incomplete access to evidence. And the evolutionary community have always said that as their defense, give us more time and we will find the evidence that you're looking for. But I think time has not been helpful to evolution. Certainly the last 20 years have suggested that evolution is not true. And as I said, there are 1,200 scientists who've signed a website saying they believe the complexity they see in biology is too great for evolution. So I think what we're seeing today is a situation where you have two starting premises. There is no God, there is a God. The evidence that we are seeing is consistent with there is a God and inconsistent with there's no God. And on that basis, I think we should really change the worldview that our society adopts. And that's, I think, really the premise. That's really the objective of this site, is to flag up that we now have in modern miracles, fulfilled prophecy, and science, the evidence to say that the hypothesis there is a God is consistent with what we're seeing in the world today. And the hypothesis that there is no God is not consistent with the evidence we're coming across. And that should have a completely profound effect upon our culture. Because our culture is based on there is no God. All our institutions, all our education, everything has that as being its foundational premise. But that is, as I believe the evidence points very clearly, is inconsistent with the evidence we're seeing. And the tragedy is that foundation that there is no God is causing millions of people in the Western world particularly to go blithely on in their lives, not realizing there's an eternal judgment to be faced. And I think that's shocking. And I would challenge the church to take this subject seriously. And I would challenge the secular community to go back and reconsider their foundational premise, that there is no God. Because I think it is not a small academic side issue. This is about people's eternal salvation. Well, thank you for listening.